Who are the best web hosting providers of 2019? Which one of them is the best to use? Let's find out. Today we'll be reviewing one of the articles I wrote for my website, Webtitle, and go over each one of these hosting platforms to find which is the best for you. As always, all links will be in the description below for each of these web hosts. So let's get into this. Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be reviewing the best web hosts that you can find in 2019. We're going to be looking at the criteria for each of these different web hosts. We're going to go over the top 10 that we can find in 2019 for right now. The importance of finding a good web hosting provider is really important. You want to find one that suits your needs, fits your price point, and has a lot of the features that you need when it comes to hosting your own website. I'm going to be going over the Webtitle article, which will be linked down in the description below, and it will go over the top 10 best web hosting providers, and I'll go a little bit more in depth with each of these different providers, who they're suited for, what their price points are, and just some of the features and pros and cons. So let's get started. The 5 criteria that we're going to be looking at for each of these different web hosts is performance, usability, capabilities, support, uptime, and pricing. So the number one hosting service of 2019 currently is going to be Bluehost. Bluehost is considered the best overall hosting service. It starts at $3.95 a month, and basically Bluehost is an all-arounder. It has a lot of great features, it has good usability, it has high performance, and so it's really good at each of these different criteria. It has decent customer support as well, although not as high. But the total score is going to be an 87% out of like 100%. And you'll find that Bluehost kind of excels at each of these different criteria fairly well. It's not going to be the highest in any of these criteria compared to the other web hosting services, but overall it has each of these scores higher than you'll normally or averagely see which each of the next web hosts. Some of the pros are fast performance, simple and easy to use interface, great intro pricing, good uptime. Cons, you'll see that there's a lack of migration services, so if you already have a website designed, you're not going to be able to switch over to Bluehost as easily, or at least they won't be helping you with that. You will need to migrate the site over yourself. And they don't have as many unique features as you might find with other web hosting providers. Some of the big features that you'll see with Bluehost are unlimited websites, unlimited storage and bandwidth, which is very nice, free SSL certificates, and unlimited domains, which just means you can host as many domains as you want on Bluehost, which is fairly standard. And yeah, that's Bluehost. The next up is going to be Siteground. Siteground is probably the highest raw performing hosting provider around. If you're looking for technical performance, Siteground is probably the service provider for you. It's going to include some of the highest speeds that you'll see, as well as great uptime and features set to make sure that your website is loading as fast as possible. They do lack some of the usability that you'll find in other hosts like Bluehost or other ones that are more conformed to beginners, as Siteground is a lot more advanced and used in more technical aspects of web hosting. Some of the pros that you'll find are it has high speed, great intro pricing, unmetered traffic, which just means unlimited bandwidth, and free site transfers. For cons, you'll find that it has a lack of usability as it is aimed for more advanced users. Feature set wise, you'll find that they have unlimited websites, advanced backups, high raw performance, super cacher for great speed, free site builder, and unlimited MySQL databases. To sum that up, basically, it just means you can have unlimited projects, they're backed up, they have high performance, and they have tools to help make sure your website is loading as fast as possible with Super Cacher. Database-wise, they do have unlimited, so you can store as much data as you need and have as many databases as you want, but again, that's more of an advanced user control, and you probably won't need it for a simple site unless you're building a in-depth web application that stores a lot of data. Next up is Fast Comet, which is voted the best beginner web host, starting at $2.95 a month. The average ping is almost 400 milliseconds, which is quite a bit slower than you would find with Siteground, which is more speed-oriented. But the uptime is also very good. What you'll find with Fast Comet is the usability is extraordinarily high. Their user interface is very simple and clean to use, and it's much more aimed at beginners. So some of the pros that you'll find with Fast Comet are very cheap pricing, free domain for life, which is a very unique feature, unmetered traffic or unlimited bandwidth, and a free site builder. The cons are it lacks some performance that you'll find with hosts like Siteground. Features, free web migration. So if you have a website hosted on a different provider, they will help you move your site over to Fast Comet. You get a free domain for life. So to extend on this, basically whenever you purchase a plan with Fast Comet, they will give you a domain, which normally costs about $10 a year, for free forever. Which is a really great feature, especially for beginners which don't have a domain name up front or are not looking to transfer over a domain name. It's really nice to build that in and have that as a free feature when you purchase your first web hosting plan, so you can get straight into building your website without worrying about purchasing a domain. You get free SSL certificates, which means that your website's going to be HTTPS. You get unlimited databases like Siteground, and you'll get access to 2 panels, SitePanel and Softaculous, which is your server management. cPanel is the most common panel that you'll see with management of servers. Both Bluehost and Siteground both use cPanel. Softaculous is a little bit more of an unknown panel. It's not used nearly as often, but they do have the option, and it can be a little bit of a better experience if you don't like cPanel. Next up is going to be Hostgator. Hostgator is known as the most well-rounded, as in it's popular. It's one of the bigger hosting providers out there. Averaging a ping of 290 milliseconds, it is very fast. Uptime is 99.98, which is very good. Some of the pros that you'll find is they have fast performance, a great variety of features, great uptime, and free site migration. Cons, you'll find that because Hostgator is pretty good at all of these things, it lacks specialization, so it's not necessarily for maybe an advanced user or a beginner user. It's actually built for both people and both sets of audiences, and it can be good for both. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, Hostgator's an all-arounder and Bluehost is an all-arounder, so what's the difference between the two? And I would say that Hostgator has a little bit more better of a feature set and more options that you can use for when you're hosting your website, and Bluehost focuses more on the performance aspects of an all-arounder, and that's why Bluehost is a little bit higher rated than Hostgator would be. So let's dive into the features of Hostgator. So you'll find that they have free web migration, free SSL, unlimited email accounts, which is really nice, unlimited bandwidth, and unlimited storage, which is great for multiple websites. Overall, Hostgator is a pretty decent hosting provider. Moving on to number 5 is Geeks. Geeks is probably one of the more popular web hosting solutions, or at least it is when it comes to environmentally friendly web hosting, which is one of their unique features that they boast with this service provider. Basically, they use clean energy to host all of your websites, which is really nice to have for a peace of mind when you're talking about running thousands of servers and thousands of websites and using up all of those resources. When it comes to speed, they have an average of 178 milliseconds, which is one of the fastest web hosts that you'll find out there. They do have a very high ping. They do lack some of the server performance that you'll find on Siteground. Ping is not the only factor when it comes to performance on servers, but they are very fast in their load times and initial uptimes of your website. Their uptime average is 99.99%, which is as high as you can get with a hosting provider. Some of their pros is they're super fast. They have a green hosting solution, which means they're environmentally friendly. They have high uptime and free site and domain name migration, which means they'll help you move over both your site and your domain name over to Geeks. Cons, they don't have great server management. Their usability is a little lacking. Their interface is simple and clean, so it's easy to navigate. It's just hard to manage your server because they're aimed a little bit more at the beginner type user interface, so you'll lack fine-tuned control from easily accessible options in the menu. Some of the biggest features that you'll find with Green Geeks is unlimited space, unlimited bandwidth, unlimited domains, which are all very useful, especially for multiple websites. You get a free domain name included. Usually the domain name is for the first year, so after the first year you will need to renew it, which will cost about $10 a year. They provide a free site builder, which is pretty decent in comparison to a lot of different hosting providers, where you're able to build your website without needing to code it all. And they have nightly backups, which make sure that your website is safe, which is a pretty good feature. Next up, we have GoDaddy. GoDaddy is the most popular web hosting platform that you will find. They're a little bit more expensive, starting at $5.99 a month. And the biggest thing that you get with GoDaddy is assurance. Because they are the most popular web hosting provider, you'll find that their stability is really high, and their feature set is very wide. It's just that GoDaddy is known for, lacking in some departments such as speed, performance, and especially customer support. So when we look at it, their average ping is 517 milliseconds, which is a little bit on the higher end. It's not nearly as fast as you'll find with Siteground or Green Geeks. Their uptime is 99.97, which is a pretty good uptime. For pros, you'll find that they're a well-known brand. They're very popular. They have great uptime, and they have free business email. Cons is that they're notoriously bad for their customer support. Oftentimes, they just will flat out refuse to help you, and other times they're very slow to contact, and it's just a real pain in the butt when you're talking about GoDaddy support. It's probably one of the most notoriously bad things about the hosting provider. Some of the feature sets that you'll find are unlimited websites, storage and subdomains, a free business email for 1 year, and free domain with your annual purchase of a hosting plan. I would recommend GoDaddy for business type website hosting because they're well known. They have the stability that goes along with hosting a business site. You need that to be very stable, especially for bigger companies. But I would only really recommend GoDaddy if you are hosting something like a business website where you need those business emails and those premium features to be able to manage users on your website. Because the customer support is so bad and the performance is really not as high and the price is coming out at higher than other web hosts, it's really only beneficial factor is going to be from a business aspect. Next up at number 7 is Hostinger. Hostinger is probably one of the cheapest web hosting solutions that you will find out there. And that's one of their biggest things that, one of their biggest draws to the web hosting provider is that they are so cheap. Their ping average is about 370 milliseconds, which is decently fast, right? It's not as slow as something like GoDaddy, but it's not nearly as fast as SiteGround or Green Geeks. But it's about middle of the pack, which is really good for the pricing that they have. Their average uptime is 99.91%. Now, when it comes to pricing, their monthly pricing is literally 80 cents per month. I know it sounds crazy. It doesn't really make any sense to me either how they have such cheap hosting. But it's actually really decent hosting pricing. Really good performance, for how cheap the hosting is. It's just surprising how well they perform for such a small amount. Some of the pros that you'll find with Hostinger is super cheap plans. Like I said, 80 cents per month is one of their base plans. Easy website builder, so it's actually a very nice website builder. Hostinger is very much aimed towards new users and users who are looking for a simple interface and an easy way to build a website for very cheap. They have 24/7 support, which is pretty good. Some of their cons is they lack features. Of course, coming with a very cheap host, you're not going to get a ton of those features that you see with other hosting providers. So some of the features they include are unlimited email accounts, a website builder, and support. That's basically what you get. You get the base of a website hosting provider, and you get support with decent performance, but you're not going to get things like unlimited websites, unlimited storage, and any of those features that you might find with other hosting providers. But it is really, really cheap. Next up is A2 Hosting. This is probably an up-and-comer. It has some very low or very high performance when it comes to website loading speeds. While their average ping is 300 milliseconds, and their starting price is $392. They are a little bit more on the expensive side for their base plans. Their performance is next to Siteground. So Siteground being the higher performer, A2Host would probably be the second highest performing website hosting provider out there. Their average uptime is 99.92%. Their pros are 24/7 live chat, free site transfers, good usability, and a money-back guarantee. Their cons are that they're a bit more expensive. When you're looking for site performance, I would honestly recommend Siteground, but A2 Hosting is a good alternative that provides a little bit of a different feature set if that's what you're looking for when compared to Siteground. Some of their features are unlimited bandwidth, unlimited storage, free SSL certificates, and a money-back guarantee. Some of the extra features that you'll find on A2 Hosting are fairly unique, and they come with most of the usability type of things, so they're not necessarily tools that you can straight up use to increase the performance of your website. They're more management side of your website type features in which you would be more easily able to access a lot of the advanced features in their user interface panel. Number 9 is Dreamhost, which comes at $259 a month, which is pretty cheap. Their ping is 719 milliseconds, making it one of the slowest web hosts by about half a second when compared to Siteground. So half a second additional time speed when you're looking at website loading. Uptime is 99.96%, which is a very good uptime for web hosts. Some of the pros are a variety of hosting options and great uptime. Cons is slow performance. So Dreamhost is probably one of the most varied hosting services, and this is why it's on the list with such a slow ping rate, is they have shared hosting, WordPress hosting, VPS hosting, website building, dedicated hosting, and cloud hosting plans. So there's tons of different variety when you're looking for a bunch of different hosting options. I'll have other videos going in depth about what the difference is between something like shared hosting and WordPress hosting, VPS versus dedicated, and cloud hosting. So you can look in the channel and find that video so that you can learn what the difference is between those variety of hosting plans. But overall, Dreamhost is basically just a varied hosting plan that allows you to choose a bunch of different options if that's what you're looking for. Some of the feature sets is unlimited bandwidth and storage, which is nice, a free SSL certificate, and a free domain for the first year. Lastly is Ipage. The reason that this hosting provider is at the bottom of the list and is even on the list in the first place is that it's an up-and-comer. It's one of the newer hosting platforms that has a great user interface. It just lacks a lot of the more advanced features that you'll find in the hosts that were listed above. The average ping for Ipage is 787 milliseconds, which is pretty slow. Uptime is 99.97%, which is good. Pros are enhanced security options, great uptime, and they are environmentally friendly. Cons is they have expensive domain names for some reason, and they don't have access to cPanel. Some of the unique features that you'll find with Ipage are $100 for both AdWords and Bing offers so that you can advertise your website when you first buy or purchase a plan. They have free security tools which come with SiteLock and a drag and drop site builder like you would find with other hosting providers to help you build your website without any coding needed. Realistically, I would not recommend Ipage right now, but it is something to keep an eye out for, as I feel like they're going to be adding a lot more features in the future, and because they're so new and starting out with a really good feature set currently with the security options, the environmentally friendly usage of their power, and how cheap they are, I feel like once they add quite a few more features that you'll find in other web hosting solutions, it'll boost them up to one of the top competitors for some of those bigger hosting plans like Siteground and Bluehost. And those are all of the hosting providers that you're going to see in 2019, or at least the top 10 that I highly recommend that you look at. I went over each of them, their pros and cons, but just to summarize as a TLDR for those that are looking for specifics on what web host they should be looking for, I would recommend Bluehost for those that are looking for a good overall experience with good usability, decent customer support, and high performance. If you're looking to start a new website and have multiple projects, if you are not necessarily a beginner, but a intermediate or an advanced user, I highly recommend Bluehost, especially for multiple projects. Siteground, I would highly recommend for anybody looking for a web host that needs high performance. Siteground is a raw performance type web hosting provider. It's going to give you the fastest load speeds with the highest server performance for the cheapest price. So for more advanced users or for users that are looking for a fast web provider, Siteground is the one you want to go with. And lastly, for beginners, Fast Comet is probably one of the best hosting providers that you can use. They have a free domain for life. They have a really great user interface and superb customer support, especially for beginners looking for help on creating their website. They do have a free website builder, and although it's not as good as something like Wix, you'll find that this is a lot more oriented towards web hosting and gives you a lot more freedom as a beginner and teaches you the basics of web hosting. So if you're a beginner, I highly recommend Fast Comet. And those are the top 3 hosts that I would recommend for 3 different audience types. But as always, I listed, all of the rest of the hosts that you can check out if they have feature sets that you would like. Hopefully, this review of all the top 10 best web hosting providers helped you out, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.